All right, everyone, it's time to talk some Arizona football with Shireen Ryan from Zona Zealots. You got to join her right there for Arizona football, basketball, just about everything coverage, athletics for Zona. Of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel for the very best in college football coverage. And if you can't catch the video, you can go audio route on Podbean, Stitcher, and iTunes. Shireen, how you doing?
Yes, I'm good. I'm good. I met Channing Frye last night.
You did?
He's
How's he doing?
Yeah, Wildcat just transferred from Cleveland Cavaliers to the Lakers.
Yeah, the Cavaliers blew up their team. I had to hear all about that from my son yesterday and get the lowdown. I was away and I didn't know anything, but Dwayne Wade got traded. But besides that, I didn't know there were guys headed to the West Coast all over the place from Cleveland. Two Lakers, of course, went Cleveland's way, and Isaiah Thomas out to the Lakers as well. So anyway, before we talk college football, we're definitely not going to talk about the NBA. But before we talk about college football, Nick Foles, he gives you his Super Bowl MVP. So there's not a whole lot of those guys walking around with Super Bowl MVPs. And now one is a former Wildcat, or always a Wildcat.
Always a Wildcat. He said he said pregame he bleeds red and blue. I've been writing about Nick Foles since he was drafted by the Eagles in the 3rd round. And it's because I watched him his whole senior year, and he passed for over 400 yards. The only thing he needed to do was learn how to run the ball, and change up his game just a little bit, which I think he learned under Chip Kelly. And then he had that one game where he passed for 7 touchdowns. He's already in the NFL Hall of Fame. And then he got traded to Jeff Fisher in the Rams, and Jeff Fisher just kind of blew his career because he had broken his collarbone. So he was just coming back, and he had no O-line at the Rams, and he didn't have the right coaching. And so they dropped him, I guess, so he could go to the Kansas City Chiefs. He was there. He got cut again. Now we got twice. Everybody counted him out. This is an Arizona Wildcat theme, okay? Everybody counted him out. I kept writing about somebody has to pick him up. You keep talking about there's no quarterbacks. This guy has proven himself. He even played in the snow and won. It was one of those games where the snow's up to your waist. It was one of the funniest games I've ever seen. But if you can go catch that. And then gets back on the Eagles. It's no coincidence because I believe the quarterback coach went to the Chiefs from the Philadelphia Eagles and went back to the Eagles. So it's no coincidence that this quarterback coach always believed in Nick. And I'm not a fair weather fan. I have been talking about Nick since he left college, and I was vindicated on Super Bowl Sunday. Vindicated.
Well, it's been an odd career path for Nick Foles. And sorry I cut you off. I think we've got a bit of a delay. So yeah, it's been a bit of a odd career path because he obviously was a star in college to a certain extent, and then lightly regarded when he came out, but then he gets the break in Philadelphia and turns in terms of all the stats and the ratings and the efficiency ratings, one of the best seasons in NFL history. Yeah. He only threw 2 or 3 interceptions that year and like 27 touchdown passes. And then he falls off the map. And then you went through the career path and where he's gone. And I understand that the only reason he stayed in the NFL was he thought, if I can get under Andy Reid, I'll stay in the NFL if they want me. But otherwise, I don't think I'm going to have much of a chance. So that's the reason he stayed and hooked up with Kansas City. And then he gets back to Philadelphia. And it's unlike really anything because you can liken it to a lot of things. Kurt Warner had a similar career path, but to go back to the team that dumped you just a couple years later and be a backup quarterback that gets a chance because the starter gets hurt and you win a Super Bowl, it's pretty crazy.
It's crazy, but he has I'm a very universal person, and he has a message. I mean, he had so many messages, and I think just being in that moment, he gave a lot of hope to a lot of people. I mean, and he said, if you fail, everybody fails, but it's okay. You can't judge yourself by social media, by the media, what the media say. You just can't judge yourself that way. And he pretty much ignored it. He doesn't get on social media except for after the Super Bowls. The first time I've seen him tweet. But I mean, you had everybody in Tucson, and all the Wildcat fans, were like, we've always known, like, what's wrong with you, NFL? Like, you've never known this. But I was so excited he got back with Philly, and I wasn't happy when Wins went down. No one's ever happy about that. You got to feel for the guy. But for him to get that, what he said, this is what I loved. He and Wentz both said that on the Eagles, it's a quarterback crew. So for some reason on that team, this works for them, where the quarterbacks are a team. They battle, but they also work really well together. And you could tell, like he would say, like, you don't think Carson's helping me and I'm not helping Carson? Like, it's, so they both should get credit for the win.
Yeah, Carson Wentz certainly was on his way to a possible MVP season and had them in position with like an 11-1 record. And then Nick Foles, unexpectedly for just about anyone, finished it off with all these upset wins. They were not favored in any game in the postseason. All right, so you mentioned not listening to the media.
Yeah.
What's that, Shireen?
Right.
You mentioned not listening to the media. Nick Foles not listening to the media. So we're not going to listen to the media, but I'm going to mention it anyway as we move on to the recruiting class. Number 11 in the Pac-12, number 58 in the nation. Now, that's not going to cut it year after year, but Kevin Sumlin, obviously in the worst position of any coach that I can think of in college football, in that, number one, you had the early signing period that nobody's had to deal with before. So you had a bunch of coaches running around that were hired like after the regular season ended, and they had enough of a issue trying to run around in a couple weeks and sign players. But Kevin Sumlin doesn't get hired until this Rich Rod situation plays out weeks and weeks and weeks later. So he had the worst timing of anybody to deal with in terms of bringing in a class.
Yeah, it was... He didn't have any time at all. He had enough time to go call and make sure all of his commitments that were going to sign were still on board. So he had time to do. So that's what he was everywhere. But yeah, that was the first thing he had to do, was secure the class he had. And then he went outside of California and Arizona, even though those are two places that he had to get his whole staff on board. He didn't have a staff on board. Forget, the recruits. He was in the middle of trying to get all his staff on board, and we talked about this last time. He brought his former OC over, and so he had to get his staff together. So he went to the East Coast, and just as a great transition, picked up a quarterback from Washington, D.C., who just happened to be in the parade where Nick Foles threw a football to him. And this guy, he was going to sign with Michigan, and Michigan was going to make him a blue shirt, so he said he didn't want to go. And then Kevin Sumlin picked him up. So it seemed like a last-minute thing. It's Kevin Doyle, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just getting used to all these names as well. So he got signed. So that was a big deal. Because we have Khalil Tate, who everybody knows. We have Jamari Joyner and Kahari. Jamari Joyner is another quarterback who signed on from Arizona. And he was going back and forth, and everybody thought he would decommit. And then someone came on, and someone talked to him, and he's staying. So he's a local favorite. And Donovan Tate, the ex-MLB player, he left last season. We don't know if Brandon Dawkins is going to stay or transfer because he's the backup quarterback at this point. And Rhett Rodriguez, of course, the son of Rich Rodriguez, we're thinking he's going to go wherever his dad goes, or he may not stay. So we were down to Kahari Lane, who is now a sophomore, Jamari Joyner, and that's all we had. We think. I mean, we don't know. Brandon might stay. He loves Arizona. We don't know. And it didn't work out too well for Anu leaving. So, and then this Kevin Doyle. So, thank God we got a quarterback.
What intrigues me is that I'm sorry, Shireen, what you got?
What intrigues you?
What intrigues me is that Kevin Sumlin collected quarterbacks at Texas A&M. And it was impressive who he was able to bring in. He brought in 5-star quarterbacks, but he wasn't able to keep all of them. And he kind of gained a reputation for somehow losing these guys. I think he stacked up just too many guys, and there was too much competition, and guys started to leave. Plus, he didn't have quite the right relationship with a number of them. And now he's got Khalil Tate. So he recruits the two coming in that you just mentioned, in Joyner and Doyle. One's a pro style, one's a dual threat. It just makes me wonder what the style of offense he's going to run post Khalil Tate and what he's thinking there. But you can't totally go by the pro style versus the dual threat, because we automatically think dual threat, okay, this guy's this great runner, and then pro style, oh, he's a pocket passer. But they have to categorize him, and sometimes it's not that clear cut. There's a lot of pro style guys that are very mobile and can run a different offense. So I was just curious about that. You got all 3-star athletes, 20 years signed. You've got one that's a hard commit right now, as I read it right now. I know it's tough to tell, but do you see any distinction at this point between what Kevin Sumlin's doing and what Rich Rod, not just on the recruiting trail, but just overall, just the difference in head coaches? And again, I know it's really early.
Well, players are attracted to Kevin Sumlin right now. So he's going to have an easier time of, getting on the phone with people, number one. Number two, he made sure he has a heavy presence in Texas. I believe he got some coaches in Texas that are, very, and so he's looking at Texas and the East Coast as well. He knows everybody in Arizona already. He was already recruiting from Arizona, and he's got some coaches with roots in California. He kept on Marcel Yates, he's already been recruiting in California. There's a lot of guys with Kyle Ford, and there's a lot of top guys, with offers from Arizona. I don't know if they've had time to go back for their next class, but they've been offering all over the country, not necessarily in California and Arizona. So we've been seeing a lot of offers come up for 2019 recently. He's going after I think for a while there, he was going after his guys who committed to Texas A&M but haven't signed yet. So he was going after those guys as well. So you got to think, he's already been in a lot of people's houses. He's already talked to a lot of kids who may have been sold on him. Now he has to sell them on Arizona.
Yeah, and he's not an old guy, but he's been around college football at a number of stops across the country, and I'm sure he's developed relationships. And based on what he did at Texas A&M, it's easy to say right now that it's fairly easy to recruit to Texas A&M, but it wasn't the case before he got there. He brought in recruiting classes at Texas A&M that they had never seen, top 5 to 10 classes there. So the guy can recruit, and he can coach an offense and bring in quarterbacks and develop quarterbacks. So a lot of good pluses for Kevin Sumlin going to Arizona. I think it's a good hire, and I think you're in good shape.
He has former employees with him. Like Yates worked for him and Mazzoni worked for him. So, and then he brought on a Coach Springer, who seems to be one of the social media coaches. So he came up with, I think it was Era 2019. He has a new hashtag. So they're kind of looking towards 2019 and they're recruiting, of course. But I think 2018 is going to be fun. And
the only challenge for you, Shireen, the only challenge for you is you're going to have to build up the same rapport with Sumlin as you had with Rich Rod.
That's going to be a problem because I guess the school's decided we're a fan site, even though SB Nation isn't, I guess. But I'd rather be a site of opinion and professional fans than spitting out news. So we try not to do that.
Yeah, we'll have to go on some kind of campaign and see if we can turn that over.
It needs to change. I think for some reason, and I'm not just saying this, the whole landscape is changing right now. And print media is but every time I'll go for credentials for something, it's like the print media gets in there first. So a newspaper with hardly any readership is going to get in there before a blog with big, huge readership. And, we have, almost 10,000 followers on Facebook. That's a lot, I think. And then you go to Twitter and we're verified. and those, so, and then we have Instagram. So, we've been gaining momentum a lot in the space. And every time I talk to a player or a parent, they compliment our site and say how great it is and they love it. And maybe that's because we're not, spewing vitriol over everybody, and we're kind of supportive with some, criticism, but the criticism's always constructive criticism. It's not he's trash or that player needs to do this or that, or, they don't deserve anything. And there's just sometimes fans just have no love for the athlete. And the athletes kick their asses. They're getting up at 5 a.m. They're, playing in the hot sun. They're doing everything they can for these fans, and the fans don't give them love. So
when you're trying to push that application, Shireen, it sounds like you need to mention the occasional appearance on Mark Rogers TV. That probably would put you right over the top.
It should. It should. You're a national broadcaster.
All right, Shireen, I appreciate it. It's always a fun discussion. Unfortunately, we got to wrap it up here. But thank you for running down the class, getting us set up with Arizona football. We'll obviously bring you on sometime close to spring football.
Okay, I just want to mention Adam Plant from Bishop Gorman. Very happy about him coming on. Bishop Gorman's a big school to recruit from, and Adam is Adam's family. His dad is Adam Plant Sr. They're close to Shaquille O'Neal's family, Sharif O'Neal's family, so it should be fun to have Sharif and Adam in the same school and have all those relationships going. So just wanted to shout out to Adam, bear down, all the recruits and commits. I'm really excited about next season.
All right, Shireen, you have a good day.
You too.